What if the greatest driver of organizational change isn't a strategy? What if it's culture? Two leaders, one shared belief. Elena Alvarez, Maxim Serra, leadership doesn't just drive results. It shapes the culture that sustains them.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on the culture of impact driven by leadership. I'm Jack Morissette, your host for this session. At Kaizen Institute, we believe that lasting organizational impact comes from more than tools or one-off projects. It comes from embedding continuous improvement into daily habits, leadership behaviors, and organizational culture, what we call the culture of impact. This means that leadership isn't just about strategy. It's about shaping the routines, mindsets, and decisions that make improvement part of everyday work. When done effectively, this creates a self-sustaining culture that drives measurable results and long-term performance. Today, we'll hear from two exceptional leaders who have successfully applied these principles in their organizations, shaping culture, engaging teams, and creating real impact. To start, could each of you briefly introduce yourselves and share what drives you as a leader? Elena, I'll let you go first.
Thank you very much. I really like you say exceptional leaders. So put up the pressure a little bit high, right, Maxim? So
Yeah.
just to make the long story short, because I live many youths, I was born in Cuba. I grew up in Spain. And when I was teenager, I went to NASA. And I wanted to become an astronaut. And because my family didn't have money in Spain to send me to America, and in Spain, the only university was the Aeronautical University, I studied to be an aeronautical engineer. And then with my work, they sent me to UK, where I married a fantastic German guy. And then since then, I've been moving between Spain and Germany, and I have I've been in many different roles, working with many different cultures, always in military programs. And to try to answer your question, what it drives me as a leader, for me is the people. It is something that with my experience, to make a real impact, what you had to use is the collective intelligence. And for a collective intelligence, you had to have is a team that really are having the same passion and the same purpose in order to make the program successful. For me, it's not a question about me being right. It's a question that the outcome has to be right. And this is what drives my daily job.
Okay, thanks, Elena. How about you, Maxime?
Super. Thank you. No, thank you. First of all, Jack, thank you so much for inviting us. A great pleasure to be here with you and Elena. And about myself, I'm Maxim Serra, originally from Barcelona, but I spent also more than 15 years living abroad. I started my career really very young, when I was 19, in a manufacturing site in automotive industry, in the production line. And from them is where I found really my really passion about operational excellence, continuous improvement. And in the last almost 30 years, I've been working for different companies such as Mahle, Yamaha, Heineken, or Novartis, and in a different industries. From automotive, that was my really big school I wanted to see. Also for some FMCGs, and as well pharma and packaging, etc. All my career I spent in operational excellence roles. This is what is my passion about. I'm super happy to be here. And what drives me as a leader was quite similar to what Elena said. For me, it's more like about people and results. One of the things that motivate me a lot is really to help the challenge to help organizations to building a high performance organizations, embed the continuous improvement inside that becomes part of the culture, not an isolated program, and really in a sustainable way. This is really the challenge and what always keep me motivated and try to do the best and learning and doing, etc. Yeah, this is about myself. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you both. As you both alluded to, leadership is central to embedding culture, right? So the Kaizen culture paradox shows that without leadership engagement, even the best improvement plans fail to stick. So for our first question, I want to ask both of you, what are the key leadership challenges you faced in embedding a culture of continuous improvement in your organization? Elena, could you start us off?
Well, for me, if you allow me an analogy, by the way, I don't know if my introduction says that I work for Airbus. I've been not like Maxime. I've been working my whole career in Airbus in many different roles, and in the last years, I've been doing end-to-end transformations. For me, the main challenge, if I can give you an analogy that I love analogies, is this old saying that you can take the horse to the pond, but you cannot oblige the horse to drink the water. And the most difficult part is to explain the horse that if the horse doesn't drink the water, maybe you're gonna die. So for me, this is the thing that happens with the transformation. You can put all your set plans. You can tell them if we do this, it's gonna be perfect, and you had to be with me and so on. But it's up to the person in the end to get this and embed with it in. And for me, the things that I hear the most when you're trying to introduce something new, and I think in that Maxine will agree, is, but I don't know why you want me to do this, because I've been doing this for so many years and it's working. And then is when it comes when I place the question, okay, tell me a little bit more. If it's working, why are we having this conversation? Why we are not improving? And then is when the silence comes into the room. And then is when you start having these conversations. So for me, the challenge is and for that I apply a lot, the Simon Sinek golden circle, to start with the why. Why do we need to have to do something different? And what will be the consequences of not doing something different? And then is when I change, and then I start listening. Because until you don't really get what the people need for that transformation, or what is in them in that transformation, the rest will be only on the paperwork, on the posters that you create, but it will not be implemented.
Okay, thank you. Maxime, how about you?
Yeah, full agree in what Elena said about the people and the resistance, etc. But also by my experience and from the leader's point of view, I wanted to see as well some of this challenge is about leadership consistency. What I mean for that? When you start in any organization, any continuous improvement program, it's a lot of energy at the beginning, no? A lot of passions with the workshop, with the kickoff, with an ambition, objectives, etc. But the real test is coming later, no? Is when has changed in the business, a lot of pressure, transformations coming, all our cycles. And at that moment is where people see whether the continuous improvement programs are really part of the leadership behaviors or are like a project, an isolate project. This is what I mean for this leadership consistency, that for me is where make the difference. And in terms of few areas that are really critical for that, for me, one can be the moving leaders from sponsors to really role models. When you start a program at the beginning, yeah, a sponsor is necessary, but it's more even necessary to have leaders playing as a role modeling. As an example, you can say as a leader that continuous improvement is very important, but if then only you reward people that are fighting, this doesn't make any sense. Or if you as a leader, you always talk about empowerment, but then you are themselves the only one that take all the decisions. You are not allowed the team to take decisions, and then they will wait for instructions. This is for me one of these key elements, no, about moving leaders from sponsors to real role modeling. A second one is really the strategic come to work. What I mean for that, a lot of organizations, they have a clear priorities, but people on the ground need to understand in my daily task how this means linked to the business priorities. And I think the responsibility of leaders is make this bridge to translate the business objective in the work that people are doing. This is a very, very, very important one. And the last one is really, I consider myself as a transformational leader, and it's try to find the balance of high expectations versus trust and support. What this means, you need to push a lot your teams, setting expectation very high, etc., high standards. But on the other hand, people, you as a leader, need to give them clarity, coaching them, and a space to pick up all these psychology, safety, etc. And this is really, really important, because if you create only a culture that push for results, this doesn't work. And if you create a culture, on the other hand, the other extreme, that only creates comfort without standard, this never will improve a lot, And this is what I mean, this balance between high expectations versus trust and support. Yeah, this is a little bit my view on this challenge, complementing what Elena said.
Thank you both for sharing. As you both have shared, right, strong leadership is critical to creating real impact. And so for our next question, I'm curious if you could share a story from your experience where you really felt the impact of your leadership, a moment when your leadership behaviors or the routines you built made a meaningful difference in the organization or a team. Elena, would you like to start?
We went with the first one. I have many stories that I can tell. And I think the one of my favorites, I think already Maxime knows it because I share it in one of the summits that we were together. And I think it's sticking so much in my head because it was my first experience as a manager. And it's back, I'm going back now to 2008 when I was moving to Germany from UK, and I was leading a part of a military aircraft system that we had to change to adapt it to a new customer. And I thought it was going to be a very easy peasy journey because I was an expert on the system, and I've been working with the different partner companies that had to develop that system. So I thought, okay, this is going to be an easy project. And well, I was really completely wrong because we were 1 month into the project and we were not advancing. It was this blaming culture between the partner companies. I'm doing my side and you are the one wrong. And the other one telling me, no, you are the one wrong. And I was in the middle, with all my tools and my resources at that time trying to solve it. And to make the matters worse, I had a new vice president coming in that for sure he was asking me the progress of the program. I said, well, it's not going that well. And the only thing he told me is, okay, put a meeting in Madrid and then we solve it there. Prepare the slides. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's what I've been trying to do for a month and I was not managing. But anyway, I prepared a couple of slides. I went to Madrid and as I always do, I had a dinner with my parents at night. And I was telling them basically, your daughter probably will be killed tomorrow because I will not be able to solve the problem that I'm facing for 1 month. And then I was telling my parents the behaviors because, of course, I could not share the technical part and they will not understand it either. And after I was sharing that, my mother, that is a master, she told me, and have you told them so? And I said, what? Okay. We say in Spanish, okay? I said, yeah, have you told them so? And I told them what? I said, yes, how they behave, because I understood that it's a question of behaviors. And then I have a little, like a illumination moment, and I went back home. It was already midnight. And I spent 1 hour, 2 hours putting together a cartoon. So I did a proper cartoon, with the little old drawings and me with ponytails, telling the story of the behaviors that they were having. And the last part of my cartoon was saying, so can we do something together? Because the only thing that I know is that we had to deliver an aircraft. And to me, the reactions were like, I was like, that's it, I'm done. Or I was like a vice president that he was a British person and the British people were clapping. The Germans were looking at me like saying, I don't believe what I just seen that she has done. The Spanish people were like, kind of laughing and saying, this crazy lady. But what for me was totally remarkable is that in 2 hours we have a program and we deliver the aircraft on time. So for me, it was in this case the not a routine, but the power of storytelling. And this is one of the things that now I use really like one of my main tools in order to do transformation, because I was just placing as well, with my heart of coaching, placing the mirror back at them. I was not judging. I was just stating what it was happening there and then what it was the need of the program. And then we make it successful.
That's an amazing story. Thanks for sharing.
Pleasure.
Maxime, how about you?
Yeah, I can put in a different experience perspective. In my case, I remember a few years ago when I was leading on a global OPEX program for a large organization. You can imagine a large scale, a lot of countries, functions, units, different levels of maturity, and we create really not an isolated program and a very robust operating system for improvements where we put a lot of effort, training people, creating routines, Kaizen events, Gemba walks, strong governance, and as well in a strong community of leaders and sponsors, etc. That part of that is not about one person. I was leading that program, but it's a team results. I'm so proud. And when I felt really the impact, it was not in any executive presentation. It was really on the ground. In the moment that I start seeing the people on the ground owning the processes, identify their own problems, look about the gaps, launch actions, follow up, really owns in autonomous way without any instruction, let's see, from a central teams, etc., etc. And you see and I saw this in different places in the world, in different countries with different cultures. And at that moment is when I felt really super proud about the success of the programs, because for me, success is in this type of activities that I'm doing is when the people can work alone and they don't need you or they don't need the central teams anymore. This is where I felt, hey, here we are success. People believe on that. They have confidence in a structure and they take the ownership and they move forward without the central instructions. This is one of the proud moments, no, in any kind of, I think, deployment of an OPEX program. Yeah.
Thanks for
Thank
sharing. As both of you know, right, a strong culture doesn't just celebrate success, it learns from what didn't go as planned. And in many organizations, the way teams and leaders respond to failure or unexpected outcomes defines the culture over time. So for the next question, could each of you share an example of where something didn't go as planned, a setback, initiative that faltered, or resistance you encountered, and how you responded in a way that strengthened the continuous improvement mindset? Elena.
It's always difficult to share failures, right? So this I will have to go back to my previous program that I was working on. It was a new program, a new developing aircraft. And in that you have a mix of completely different people. People with a lot of experience, people with less experience, people coming from commercial, people coming from military backgrounds, different ways of working. And, every program that you just start to develop is quite at the beginning quite hectic, but you had really like very tough milestones, at least in the engineering part to deliver. And sadly, we failed. So the first big milestone that we had to deliver, we failed. And then, with the mind and in that time I was part of the transformation. So I was supposed to improve the steps, and people just tends to apply things that are, like workarounds and things that you can change in the process that you have. But what I was feeling the whole time, depending with the different groups of engineering and programs and the different functions that I was talking, it was the frustration. So really the people were completely frustrated. And because I'm a little bit now with the knowledge that I have acquired when I did my coaching, I'm passionate about neuroscience, and I say, okay, first we had to tackle here how the people feel, in order then to, instead of just jumping to that is the mind of an engineer, you jump into the solutions and the workarounds. So the only thing that I did, and at the beginning it was a lot of resistance, It was just really to understand the feelings of the people. What was the thing that was making them frustrated when we have failed? And in that, I apply a methodology that I am passionate about that is called Think Wrong. And it has an exercise that is called the pain tree. And basically, it's a tree. So you have a poster with a tree. And then the first thing that you assess is what are the pains that the people were feeling when they were failing. And then we put them all in common. Then we were assessing, the branches of the tree. What are the consequences of having that pain? And in that, there were a lot of information, like people don't, feel sick, they just go home early, or they don't, they are not concentrated the whole time. And then we assess then the roots of the trees. What are the root causes? And we identify the root causes. And for me, and I was doing that across all the teams in order to get like a general view to then see what actions can be taken. And for me, one of the most surprising things, it was the feedback that we were receiving from the people, that they were saying we had time to express the problem. We had time to express how we felt. And we have felt heard, that we have been the people, that you are listening to us. And this alleviate a little bit the stress of the people, and then we will be able to concentrate in what are the actions of the process that they have been failing, and we were trying to look for technical solutions of the processes. And it was not 100% perfect, but for me, the part of the success was that at least the people were thinking, okay, I've been treated as a person, and they understand that I will be able to find the solution if I had the space, because what we were doing is giving them the space that they will contribute to the solution, not that the solution was going to be imposed. I don't know if I answered completely your question, but this is
Definitely. That was a great response. I'll have to use the pain tree sometime with my teams. Thanks, team. How about you?
Yeah, no, but aligning what Elena said, really involve people is the key of the success. I can go back a few years ago in one of my early stage of the career, try to implement in the automotive industry on a global regional OPEX program. And I remember that at that time that the program was not as expected. Let's see, less, the adoption level was not what we were expecting, no? And then I know that because people feel so heavy, a lot of resistance, and we were not moving forward at the speed as we planned, no? And I know that these similar situations, a lot of organizations take the decisions to go and to push harder, more reporting, more follow-ups, escalations, etc. But at that time, I took a completely different approach. I decided to stop and listen. And aligning what Elena said, field workshops, listening with the people, brainstorming. And then you realize that the people is not really against to do continuous improvement, but people are against to do something in top of their daily activities or something that is not reconnected in what they are doing, and they feel a central activity, but not something that will solve their problems. And so we adapted, and no way we simplified the program, because one of the learnings that I had in my career is that as much simple as you are doing, much better, easy to understand, less resistance you will get. And that what we did is really try to connect the global initiative or the global program to the real problems. And this is a key, really. Talk the language of the people on the ground. What are your problems? And then let's see how this global program can help you. Really, this connection is very important. And another thing that we implement is really to involve more people from the ground, meaning leaders, people from the teams, to create communities of ambassadors, to be the sponsors of the initiative. And all these things, for me, was really something that was not planned, but we turn around. And one of the learning lessons, a part of involving people since the beginning, all levels of people, not only managers. But for me, one of the learnings here is that Resistance also is an information, is key. It's key information. When you receive resistance, you don't need to be upset. Take this as a feedback, no, in order to adapt, to be flexible. And link with this flexibility, another learnings is that when you try to improve programs like that, or to become really to be as a transformation leader, etc., another important thing is really that the things are not rigid. You need to be really stay committed to the outcomes or the goals or the results of the program, but you need to be flexible on the path. This is also another learnings about this experience that we started not in a nice way, let's see, but at the end, listening more the people, adapt it together, that not becomes a central top-down initiative, we end up with a lot of success. This is a little bit my learning here from the past.
I
I'm
think that
starting to get a theme
just
here.
if you had to summarize what Maxine says, as I said, if you had to get it in one word, is listen. I think this
Yes,
is
exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, leadership is most effective when it empowers the teams to take ownership, right? And so for the next question, I want to understand if some examples of how you've engaged your teams and encouraged ownership during a specific transformation. Maxime, I'll let you go first this time.
Okay. Good. No, thank you. How I engage teams. One is what we talk about. I like to try to start things with the real problems, not with the methodology. I love methodology. I love tools and all these kind of things. I'm a passionate, but you cannot enter in a room with a new initiative within a team and say, "Hey, let's go and implement Lean." This is, in my experience, the wrong way. You need to go there, and then you will be implementing methodologies, systems, no? But the good thing is that, my experience say that you need to go there and say, okay, what are your problems? What are the time you spend this? What are the barriers that prevent you achieve your goals? Where you lose your time? These type of questions is what I like to start. Start with the real problems, and then you understand more what is the reality, and do you can adapt or flex or whatever will be, adapt the lean program that at the end you will be implement. But don't try to go very hard with methodology without understanding clear what are the problems in order to, let's see, to adapt the program and to be more success. Because if you start with that way, change completely the energy of the people, because then people see you and the program and the corporate support, etc., something not in top of or bureaucratic or whatever you want to say. They can see you, if you start in that way, by experience, more like a person that or team that come to help them to fix their problems. Another one that for me is important for engaged team is really to use the daily management, visual routines, because at the end, to have a culture is about to repetition, about the routines, no? And then when you do this well, when people can see, hey, I identify myself. I'm not talking about reporting. I'm talking a very practical and pragmatical approach that people can identify the performance, the quality issues, what are the problems, they identify themselves the solutions, they track the countermeasures, etc. This is also for me another key element that people can feel autonomous and these engagement levels grow. And another one, and for me not less important because it is really important, is really the how I can say, the clarity and the transparency and the communication. People need to know not everything, but everything that you can translate. As a leader, you need to share, because people need to see, hey, what success looks like, how we'll measure success, because they will feel more engaged because you ask them to do something. But if they feel how success will look like, how you will measure, and at the end, you generate more confidence, and then everything will work perfectly. This transparency in communications, etc., etc. I'm talking about the company goals translated to them, how the job impact to the organization, etc. is very critical. Yeah, and then how I can say, yeah, no, yeah, that's all. That's all.
Okay, perfect. Both great examples. Elena, anything to share?
So, I mean, it's just building of what Maxi says. For me, to engage people and to make them own the change, you cannot impose it. And this is basically what Maxime has said. So for me, is how do you create the space where they, in the end, they feel that they own the change and they want to make it successful. And this is what I think that as transformation, the transformations that I do are not more like in production lines and so on. It's in the part of the development, so it's a little bit different. But you can apply the same, let's say, philosophy. And again, I apply a lot another technology, another exercise within the Think Grown. That is basically what Maxine says. You had to tell them where we are, but you also had to make them feel where we want to go. We call it the moonshot. What is your moonshot? When are you going to put your the man in the moon? And this is then applying the same things that Maxine was saying. For me, one exercise that I like to do a lot is when we know where the challenge is. I don't like to call them problems. I call them, what is the challenge of today? And then we all agreed. I have a methodology that I define the challenge. And the first thing that I do when I run the workshop is just to agree if everybody is happy with the wording of the challenge. And normally you spend 10 to 15 minutes changing things here and there, because then everybody's accountable to that challenge. And then when you define what are the areas of that challenge that are working, what I call really bad and ugly, then we put them in another exercise that is following the circles of power of COVID. Something that you can control, something you can only influence, and something that you can inform. And then I started to define, when they define what is the things that they believe that they can control to improve it, because if you can control it, you cannot blame somebody else that it has not happened, because the team has said this we can control. And this for me is where the power is. It's like a little bit like in coaching, that in coaching, the coach doesn't give the solution. Because if I give you a solution, then you can tell me, hey, Elena, you told me to do this and it didn't work. So I help you, Jack, to find the solution. And for me, this is the trick of keeping the people engaged and empowered.
That's such an important point. Thank you for sharing that. For the next question, circling back, Maxime, to your point around daily management, I want to dive into this a little bit further and understand how you ensure continuous improvement becomes part of the daily habits and routines rather than just a short-term project. Elena, I'll let you respond.
Oh, no, let Maxine do it.
Okay.
Not an easy one, eh? Yeah, not an easy one. But based on experience, one of the important thing is really to have a strong governance in place. Because some people feel like the governance is some, I don't know, can express a more bureaucratic thing, etc. But by experience, I realized that is a very critical element of this continuous improvement loop. No, governance is an important one. You need to have a strong governance that everything is said. But I wanted to be a little bit repetitive of the previous points, because for me also what we discussed before about align the priorities of the company, link the business priorities linked to the continuous improvement activities is essential, because if I'm doing X task, I will be more engaged and more happy, no? If I know that this is linked to one of the company priorities. This is a very important one. The next one is what we discussed already. It's about the daily routines, but in a visual management, daily activities that operators or people in the support functions owns and create this habit, no? Because I have my task, even if it's a small task in a group, in very agile way of working. This is a very important one. And another one that I wanted to highlight that we didn't discuss yet is about the capability building, because always is more about I am asking my team or asking the members of the organization to do something, but we need to help them, no, to get this experience. And by capability, I'm not talking only about to do a training. It's really practicing, fail, learn, relearn. Is all this whole time of years of experience. This is the way that we generate and we create. We build really capabilities, and I'm part of that. And this is one of the areas that I spend a lot of time personally, is really building capabilities of your leadership team. Because at the end, do process improvement. It's necessary, it's very important, but in my experience, say that spend more time building capabilities of your next layer of leaders is even more important, because it's the way you sustain everything. Yeah, these are a little bit how I can see myself, the way to back to your question, no, how you can keep, but it's not an easy one, the daily habits running, no.
Definitely. Elena, anything to add to that?
Yes, I mean, I totally agree with Maxime. So for me, governance is super important, and the tricking here is what governance, right? And the tricking here is how big or how difficult or how complex this governance is, and that's what I'm always, adamant of what I call the baby steps. When you run the workshops and you decide, okay, this is not working, what is the solution? And I say, give me baby steps. Don't give me the whole change of no, give me and then for the majority of the people say, oh, we had to revisit all the roles and responsibilities, and I say, this is not a baby step, this is already running. So for me, it's like, because for me, it's repetition, because like Maxine was saying, is to create the habit is the way that our brain works. When you do repetition of the same thing, it's like, brushing your teeth. You in the morning don't think I had to put the toothpaste in my toothbrush. You just do it automatically because you already created the highway, the neural highway that does that. So for me, it is how you embed a culture of achieving baby steps that with repetition, you don't even think about it, so they become part of the culture. That is something also that Maxine was mentioning before, how do you maintain it within the culture? So for me, governance and repetition, and baby steps.
All great points. Thank you both. So shifting gears a little bit, the next point is around digital challenges. So leadership must evolve to meet new organizational and digital challenges. So I'm curious to understand how you see leadership evolving over the next few years and what capabilities will be critical to sustain a culture of continuous improvement. Alina, I'll let you kick us off.
Now what you're asking us is that we look at the magic ball, right? And give us how is the future leadership. And in this case, I get the magic ball to AI. And so I cannot tell you, it didn't agree, so I cannot tell you if AI is hallucinating or not, because there are many, no, just joke apart. For me, I don't know. The only thing that I know is what we are confronting is what we call now the bunny world. I don't know, you have heard that terminology, that we are, since COVID, we are in the bunny world. So it's a world that is brittle, that is anxious, that is not linear, that is uncertain. So whatever are the characteristics of a leader, they had to be able to navigate this world. And for me, then, if I had to summarize it like in three main elements, the first one is to be authentic as a person, as a human, and as a leader, because technology will change so much fast that if you really don't know what are your, how do you behave yourself and your own values, it will be very difficult that you try to help the rest of the organizations following a path. And the second one for me is I think Maxine was mentioning it also before, is the learning. You cannot stop being curious and learn, because things will move so fast that you really need to keep up with what is going on. So the curiosity of check what is outside there, that we can be prepared for what the future brings us. And the third one is, because exactly what I said before, the origin is almost, as a leader, we will not be able to have the solutions. We will not know the answers. The answers will come from the collective intelligence. So if your team trusts you, if your team feels that you are having the same purpose, then the team will have the solution with the help of AI, not the opposite. AI will not help, will not give the solution to the team.
I love that point on
my 3 things.
authenticity. Yeah, that's a great point. Maxime.
No, completely agreeing what Elena said. And for me, AI will not be and I'm passionate about this technology, but will be not really the ultimate driving for this. For me, AI will help more to amplify the human capabilities and the human experience. And back this to how I can see the leadership capabilities. Because one, for me, that I truly believe will be critical is the capability to simplify complexity. Because now you have a lot of data, dashboards, tools, AI, large language models. For me, the cool leader will be the ones that are able to take all those things, talking to the teams and say, hey, let's focus on what matters and to set the directions. It's not a new capability, always was there, but I think it's one of those that need to reinforce with this new technological, let's say, environment that are coming, and these fast moving things that every week everything is completely different, and especially if I'm talking in the way of AI, and really a good leader need to be the one that translate complexity into clarity and clear actions. And another one, I cannot see leaders need to become a super IT experts, back to the AI wall, but need to understand what is the new technology, the value that it can bring. And then see, hey, this makes sense to implement or not make sense, because we can see hundreds of companies that implement AI or certain tools or automations because it's the new trend, and they see that this will be the fantastic solution, but then the impact of the return of investment is not what they expected. And a good leader need to understand the technology without having a super expert, where can bring, where is the value it can do, how we can take fast decisions, how we can automate processes, but with the ultimate goal to help people to amplify the knowledge and experience that they have, not to replace. And the coaching, or as Elena said, the trust, all this part become even more important, and especially in the world that we are going with a lot of uncertainties. Hey, my job will be replaced for a robot or whatever. I think is where leaders need to be more transparent in the communication, more close to the people, because at the end, people can only follow leaders that they can trust. And this, I think, this connection will be very important. And the last capability, by experience, I can see that every time processes are more complex, I want to see, and I can see leaders that every time need to develop more the capability to, how I can say, system thinking. Because it's not now that I have a problem in my domain, in my area. Certain times the problems are cross domains, cross multiple areas, cross multiple systems, multiple data points, etc. And I think a good capability of the leader is really to be able to connect the dots in order to understand these complex environments. that the large organizations in special they are having. No, yeah, this is a little bit a complement in what Elena said, and in my view, experience how I can see really the capabilities of the leader for the coming years.
That's all really good feedback, and I'm curious a year from now where we stand, right? What's working, what's not working. It'll be interesting to see how this evolves. So before we close, just want to hear one final thought from each of you. If you could leave our audience with one thing, one idea, one habit, or one belief that has shaped the way you lead and inspire the people around you, what would it be? Elena, you want to go first?
So for me, I'm going to give you a quote because I love quotes. But I'm going to give you my own quote that I create with my experience. So as a leader, you don't have to be perfect. You only have to be great with the resources that you have at any given time. And I hope that today, Maxine and me, we have shared some of our stories and tools and processes. So you can put it in your pocket of leadership and can use it in the future. Then it will. I will feel that we had have an impact in this conversation.
I love it. Maxime, how about you?
Super. I don't have a quote, but I can see it. But for me, leading by example is essential. And an advice that I can give is really be close to the people, close to the process, and be clear about objective goals and results. This is for me a key thing really to help engage people and to make teams stronger and organizations. Really, be really on the ground.
I couldn't agree more on that one, right? You have to be close to the process and the people, because if you aren't, it doesn't matter all of the other tools and things that you have to use, right? It won't work. So that's a great point to end on. Well, thank you both, Elena and Maxime, so much for sharing your insights today. To everyone who's watching, leadership is not just a title, it's a daily choice. So I hope you can take the ideas, habits, beliefs shared today back to your teams and let them be the starting point for something lasting. As you return to your teams, think about how the ideas shared today can translate into real actions and behaviors that strengthen your culture of impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.